Hi there, I'm Amy Griffiths and I'm one of the journalists in Manx Radio's newsroom, and you're listening to Newscast.
Lawrie Hooper, member of the House of Keys for Ramsey. So this was something that came up quite strongly through the election process in Ramsey, that actually there was a lot of real concern about potential overdevelopment and development on the South Beach. And I made a very clear commitment to my constituents that I would try and prevent that. I would do whatever I could that was within my gift to make sure that didn't happen, that we protected that public open space for future generations. And up until this point, I've been telling people to just trust the process, because there's a planning process, an area planning process that's going through. There's a public element of that with consultation and engagement, and then there's a public hearing. Everyone can make their case, and the planning inspector will then make recommendations, and the planning area plan will come out, and that will, in my view, that was always going to result in a protection for that area of the town, for the beach, and so there wasn't really a need to do anything. We could just let the process play itself out. Unfortunately, what happened at the end of that process is Tynwald then rejected the plan. So all of that work, all of that potential protection has now gone. And actually, I'm not convinced that that's going to come back anytime soon. My concern here is now that may be out the window for the next 5 years or more. So really, I'm not left with any other options other than to say, okay, well, let's go one step further then and take this whole thing outside of the planning process and just enshrine in primary law the thing that the planning process was going to do anyway with that area plan, which says basically that's a beach, it's a public open space, you can't build on it. It's not rocket science. Like I say, the planning process already came to this conclusion. It's just because the area plan itself was thrown out at the end that we don't actually then have that protection that the plan would have given us.
And this obviously kind of relates a lot to the plans for the marina development on the South Beach area as well. And I mean, there are currently, as we understand, there are currently no active plans to continue with that scheme at the moment. So is this bill really necessary to bring this forward now?
Well, like I say, the idea behind the area planning process was that would enshrine long-term protections for the area, and actually that's fallen away. And I have no surety at all about what will happen in 6 months' time, or a year, or 5 years. And the whole conversation that was happening during the election was about protecting this area for the long term, into the future, not just now for the next 5 minutes, for the next 5 months, but for the next 50, 100 years. And the way to do that actually is with legislation saying that this is a protected space. And I think that's the challenge here is the marina development plans have come and gone. They keep coming around every couple of years. I know then they're not as dead as we'd like to think they are. I think there are still active conversations and lots of active support from certain quarters for that. And so I don't think it's as certain as we'd like it to be that this thing isn't going to happen. And so the only way to put it beyond doubt really is to do something like this. Like I say, I was hoping that the area planning process would have given the protections that were needed, and had Tynwald supported that plan, that would have done the job. But because that didn't happen, now we have to go down an alternative route to achieve that thing, which actually the people of Ramsey were very clear during the election process that they very firmly wanted to happen.
And so, to silence some of the cynics out there, maybe this isn't purely just, an electioneering tactic, I suppose, really, is with less than a year away until the next general election.
No, like I say, I was very hopeful that the area planning process would have resolved the issue, and that's what I've been telling people who've been approaching me with concerns over the last few years is to trust that process and to say we don't need to do anything because actually that process will get you the result that you need, and actually it would have done. It would have got there until Tynwald made that decision in November to say no thanks, we don't want that plan. And so that's why the timing of this has happened, because really there isn't a fallback position to take. I think there are some other routes that I'm also exploring. But because of the amount of time left in the legislative calendar, we don't have that long now before the end of the session, before the end of the parliamentary term. If I don't get this leave to introduce request in now, there's no chance of getting a bill through by the end of the administration. So in terms of timing, the reason it's coming so late in the administration is because I was very confident the area planning process would actually resolve the issue without needing to do any extra work. Because that didn't happen, I'm really left with no fallbacks now, and this really is the only time I can get it in, because I need to make sure that if this is the route we're going down, it has to happen by the end of the administration. Otherwise, there's no guarantee that it'll get picked up and taken through. So it is really unfortunate that it's come to this, because from my perspective, it does feel a bit last minute, because this was not my preferred approach by any stretch of the imagination. So it is a little bit on the fly, if I'm honest, about the decision to bring this. But actually, I've worked through it. I'm going to work with the Cabinet Office on getting some maps drawn up, and I'm getting the language in the bill right. And really, that's why I've got to get this done now, because that will take a little bit of time, and I want to make sure it's absolutely right, and I still have enough time to take it through the whole process before the end of the parliamentary session.
And your parliamentary colleagues, as you talk about, rejected the North and West Area Plan. So how confident are you that you can get the support that you need to then get this through?
Well, we'll find out on Tuesday, I suppose. When people were talking about the area plan, the areas of concern really weren't Ramsey. So I didn't hear anyone really in the House of Keys or Tynwald throw any real concerns about the Ramsey elements of the plan, or this particular aspect of it as well. Actually didn't seem to come up as a particular objection. The areas of the plan that people had real issues with seemed to be more around the Peel area and the zoning of some land out west. So I'd like to think that this issue, being as it is very much a constituency matter, and I think both myself and Dr. Allinson are on board with making sure that this protection happens. I think actually I'd like to think the House of Keys will support us on this.
On that thread, I suppose going a little bit into the North and West Area Plan there for a second, do you think it would have been more successful if it had been split into the North Area Plan and the West Area Plan? Do you think that would have potentially had a slightly different outcome had it been presented in that way?
Oh, absolutely. Like I say, during the debate, I don't think there was any real concern about the Ramsey and the North areas. I think there was a little bit of worry about the some of the land that was being zoned, but on balance, I think people felt there were enough protections built in around that zoning that would have done the job really in terms of making sure development was appropriate and not over dense and not overdevelopment happening on the outskirts of Ramsey and in the villages in the north. I think the real issues were with Peel and out west, and so if it had been split, I think maybe you would have got a different outcome. I think the northern plan probably would have gone through, and the western area probably would have been the bit that struggled or that maybe fell at the last hurdle. So I think joining them together obviously is what's caused a little bit of an upset, especially in Ramsey, because like I say, the plan I think was broadly was positive for the town, and it's a shame that some of the protections that plan would have given us have now fallen away, and that we have to take other routes to try and secure some of that protection for some of the public open space in town. Not
to be the voice of doom and gloom as such, but what happens if your leave to introduce isn't supported by your colleagues?
Then it isn't supported. Ultimately, we've still got some of the process and the work that went through the area planning process, which I think does reaffirm the unsuitability of the area for development anyway. So it does add some weight, I think, to any potential application or any potential attempt to develop the site. There is some weight now behind the fact that is public open space and shouldn't be developed because of the way the plan process was undertaken. But if my colleagues don't support this on Tuesday, then I will have to fall back and see if there are any other routes that I could possibly take. Like I say, this was very clear from the people of Ramsey during the election process. It was very clear in my manifesto. This was a commitment I made. And so if this approach doesn't work, I'll need to look for a plan C. And then if plan C doesn't work, I'll have to look for a plan D, and I'll just keep on going until I find something that does work.
So would it potentially be another item then on your manifesto next year, potentially?
Well, like I say, I'm really positive about this. I'm really hopeful that I will get the support to take this relatively straightforward piece of legislation through the Keys, and I'll be able to get that through and out the other side before the end of the administration. So I'm hoping to be able to put this to bed, like I say, for the long term, so that this stops becoming one of those kind of cyclical issues that we end up discussing every 2 or 3 years, and it keeps coming back when actually the view, I think, has been expressed very clearly that this isn't something that the town wants. I think people are very happy to see development inside the harbour area. They're very happy to see the pier being fixed up and maintained. There's lots of work going on that I think people would support, lots of areas of positive development that people would back in and around town, but just not this particular area, just not this particular site. And that message has come through loud and clear, I think, over the last couple of years.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.